I consider myself an obsessive observer, which means I think I'm just hypersensitive to the world around me. So I'm always looking, I'm always looking at auctions, flea markets, thrift stores. I'm just really sifting through the clutter of our culture and our commerce. I mentioned earlier today that I consider shopping part of my research. And I do. I love to look at product. It's just a fact. And there's no separation between the high and the low. I like small, cheap plastic toys, and I like elite, limited edition Italian sports cars. There's no difference to me. I'm just sort of, I'm literally obsessed with the aesthetics and their meanings. I did see a sign in LA, I think is another good example. I'm guessing it was a podiatrist or a foot doctor or something, but it was a foot, a happy foot, and he was using a crutch. Now, does the foot have feet? How would a foot use a crutch? Like, he didn't have a body, he was a smiling foot with a bandage on his toe, but he had a crutch, and I couldn't figure out if he was walking or if he was just hopping on one foot and then using the crutch. It made absolutely no sense, but it was this huge lit sign on the corner of some street, some commercial point. I love this kind of twisted narrative in the real world, and it's everywhere. It's just absolutely everywhere, from the bread on the shelf to the shoes we wear and the clothes. Our current visual culture, I think, is just an absolute mess. I don't propose there's any cure for it, or I just propose that maybe I can find some sort of peace with it if I go out there. I sort of throw a net through all of what I see, and I come back to my studio, I resynthesize this, and then I bring it back and deliver it again. There's never a specific meaning to any one of these icons or logos. What I shoot for is literally an open narrative. I invite people to bring as many different meanings as they possibly can. And several years ago, I made a robot out of Styrofoam. And there were just some pieces sort of kicking around, some packaging pieces, and I thought, wow, it looks like, stamped metal, or it looked so mechanical in nature. So I made 2 or 3 cuts in some Styrofoam, and I stuck it together, and I thought, wow, that looks just like a robot. This one in particular has a distinct gesture. I wanted to make really the biggest one I had ever made, and to fit in the space, he has to crouch into the corner. And his gesture is really in response to this overload of graphics. Now, I think certainly I can reduce it to that sort of simple formula. There's a robot in the corner, crouched and exhausted and overwhelmed by the overload of graphics around him. But I'd like to think there's a lot more going on here. The robots, for me, exist on a lot of levels, or I understand them on a lot of levels, and it's taken me a lot of years to figure that out. I appreciate them in this very kind of tongue-in-cheek acknowledgement to minimalism, this giant singular media object of singular color, and minimalism sits that way for my own understanding of it, in admiration and humor. The blank white painting, the large cube. I love these things, and at the same time I think they're also amusing. So I think the robot sort of exists on that level. I also think it's very elegant. It has this kind of crafted, sort of exquisite construction about it, which is not, I don't think it's by my great skill or insight or anything. It's just the way that the foam comes together. It just seemed, really, it still seems quite obvious to me. It also took a while, but I think that they're kind of an evidence of our current consumer culture, right? We buy and sell nonstop. We're meant to buy most things if they wear out. We don't get them repaired or fixed or patched. We throw it out and we buy a new one. That goes for electronics and power tools, and that seems crazy to me. It seems like not too long ago the idea was to buy the best one that you could and have it last your entire life. And I'm 40 and I've probably owned a dozen battery-charged drill screwdrivers by now. That seems crazy to me. Well, the robot, it's been suggested, many people say, oh, you should make him move, or you should light his eyes up, or make smoke come out of them, and that's not really what it's about for me. The robot is an icon for me. It's an idea, it's the reduced idea of the robot. And I'm very comfortable in that sort of reduced sort of, I think it's actually harder to edit than it is to add. It's hard to deliver something in a very reduced fashion. And then there's that beautiful irony, that it's so minimal, it's so reduced, but can be so broadly understood or perceived. I love that. I want to make my work accessible for everybody. That's a pretty grand statement, but the fact is, I am completely available to help anybody over the bridge. I don't make art for artists, I don't make it for the academy, I don't make it for the museum. I make it for anybody who wants to engage with it.
Sort of out of
I